Hi, everyone. I am so happy to be part of the Ad Club Women's Leadership Forum. This is one of my favorite organizations, and it's one of my favorite events. Ad Club people are a lot of fun. Also, I feel like the kinds of conversations and interviews that take place at the Women's Leadership Forum give me food for thought for months. I just appreciate how dynamic this group is and the things that we're able to think about going forward. It's also really a pleasure to be part of it this year because I get to talk about an organization that I love with two women who have had an incredibly beautiful relationship as a result of Big Sister Boston. It has been the foundational support and mentoring group for women and girls in Boston for 70 years. It is our 70th anniversary. I believe in this group so much that I'm on the board of directors. And so I've had a chance to see the big and little relationships and how those relationships really are empowering and life-changing and a source of strength for women who persist. And it is my pleasure today to introduce you to a big and little sister who were paired more than 30 years ago, Wai Lam Kwan and her big sister, Jacqueline Church. It is so nice to be with both of you. You have such an amazing story. And Wai Lam, I want to start with you. Can you take us back to that day in August of 1990 when you finally got to meet Jackie, what that was like and what were you feeling?
So it was August 12th, 1990, a sweltering hot day. And I remember sort of like craning my neck out the window and looking out to see who this person, who this big sister would be. It's like this little tiny body walking up with Helen, the social worker at the time. And I just remember, I just froze. And as soon as they got to the door, I couldn't even open the door. My mom had to go open the door. And then I sat there like frozen, silent. But sort of just like, it's still sort of like me just talking about it right now. It's like sends me all the warm and fuzzies. And I just like, what a tremendous impact she's had in my life to change the trajectory of sort of like where I am right now. The path of like my like education, my career. And it's just, she has made a profound impact in my life. And I'm forever thankful.
You know, it's one of those things often when we talk about the people who've had that kind of an impact on our life, we're talking about blood relatives. And yet, you know, the two of you until this day that you met in 1990, you know, your paths might never have crossed were it not for Big Sister. And we talk in Big Sister about the idea of being present, not perfect. The idea is that you don't need to be all things. You just need to be that source of support for a girl or a young woman. And Jacqueline, I'm curious, you made this leap to be a big sister. You wanted to do this. Were there things that you had to get past in order to accept that you were more than enough for a little sister?
I would say that's something I still work on. But I grew up in a bicultural household. My mother was an immigrant. And so I grew up with an awareness of how difficult it was for her to come from Japan and to be an American citizen, which she's so proud to be. But English as a second language and all of the things that meant for her as I was growing up. And so when I was in college, before I came to Boston to go to law school, I went to Northeastern. I had met someone in college who was a big sister, and she had raved about what a positive experience it was for her. And so it sort of opened the door to that idea for me. And it was actually not until I was practicing law that I became more in control of my own time and was able to actually volunteer. And through becoming a big sister, I learned that it was not something that I was giving of myself, but something I was gaining for myself. And so it changed my view of it. And I wound up working with the board of directors at Big Sister and said to them, listen, we have to change the messaging because it's so much of something that big sisters get from it. It's not that you're just giving to a little sister, you're gaining something from this. So I was really, really fortunate to be matched with such a stellar, she was 9 at that time, but it's been the best thing I've ever done, like great honor in my life.
Well, I feel like the two of you are just the most beautiful example of a friendship that has not just persisted, but has been thriving for decades. And Wai Lam, I know that you credit Jacqueline with teaching you how to take risks and how to tap into, your authentic self. But she also was involved in nudging you, if we can use that word, in pursuing things that you might not have. So Wai Lam, when you talk about the changes that she's made in your life, what were some of the key decisions that you've made that Jacqueline played a role in?
I think so I didn't take the traditional route right after high school at BLS to do the 4 years in college. Gap year wasn't exactly super popular in the 90s. He fully supported me, okay, do your own thing and do the 8-year plan with college, which is what I did. And then, then really going back to my roots, my degree is actually in education, but I haven't, I work in a school, but I don't actually teach. I'm the director of operations. But she's always been super supportive, but also always going back to what my gut feeling, what I always feel good doing. And that's something that I would support, now that I'm back at Boston Latin School, I just I put myself in there, and it just brings me back to all of the times that I've not trusted myself, but thought, okay, can I really do this? Am I good enough? And could I actually see it through the whole entire process? So, and, I also credit her a lot to believing in me in volleyball, because playing sports, for my mom was not a huge thing. And that still to this day, I still play. And also how she mentored me, that's really supported my coaching journey, which I went back to BLS this year to coach. And that's something when we talk about how she's taught me a lot, it's actually making me want to give back in some small way to my community.
Well, and that's not small. And the other thing too is that coaching really requires a degree of confidence, a confidence in your ability to communicate, a confidence in yourself, and being comfortable sharing mistakes that you've made along the way, because your players learn from that. What were things about Jacqueline that you picked up on that you thought, even as a young person, I want to emulate this, what she's doing right now, that I respect and admire that?
I think everything. A lot of speaking up, actually. I think that was really hard. I mean, I really think back, Jacqueline was gracious enough to take me to France when, at a turn of the century. So I was just about 20. And I still remember that experience where, I took French in high school and I study abroad, and it was great. But, when you're there, you are practicing. So you're actually speaking. And there was one incident where, as a 19, 20-year-old, did not like to wake up early. We were standing in the post office, waiting in line to get stamps, was it? Or something. It was something very particular, but they said, no, you have to come back the next day. So, we come back the next day. And then it was the same guy, I think, that was telling us, no, you have to come at a specific time. And I just I didn't lose it, but in French, I lost it. I was this is exactly what you told us. And I was just going a million miles a minute. And I think
in perfect French.
Right. And I just I don't know what happened that day. I mean, I was definitely sleep deprived, and I didn't want to be there to get whatever it is. I don't even remember what it was, but it just every time that I am scared to do something, I sort of do think back to that moment. I'm in a foreign country. I don't really know the language, but I do know it actually. And I just gotta do it, so.
He was done that this face produced perfect French and put him in his place. We came back here because you told us to come back here. We're not leaving until you give us this stamp that we need.
You persisted.
She persisted.
And Jacqueline, you were saying that there were also lessons in being a big sister, sort of forcing you to walk the walk in a way that maybe you would not have had to were it not for your relationship with Wai Lam.
Absolutely. I think it's one of the best lessons that I gained from it. One of the things that I gained from this relationship, and something that I always try to tell potential big sisters to think about it. You actually gain something from this relationship. You're not just giving to it. But for a lot of us, we may not have had perfect parenting growing up. So we didn't get the messaging that we should have about being self-confident, about persisting, about being worthy. And by trying to model that behavior for a young girl, you wind up reteaching yourself these things, teaching yourself these things. And so that was for me really instrumental. Learning how to say like, so I'm learning how to get better at this, whether it's ice skating or roller skating or whatever, rather than, oh, I stink at this. I'm so bad. I'm such a klutz. I had to think about what is that saying to her? If I'm just being negative about myself, I don't want her to see that message. So she was 9 or 10 at that time. I want her to see a different way of thinking about it. And so in trying to model it for her, I was actually learning myself, right? How to just give yourself a break and say, you know what? You can really stink at something, but you can be fun at it. You can have fun doing it too, right? And I never got good at any kind of skating, but I did learn how to have some fun and give myself a break. So that wasn't something I was very good at before I had the opportunity to try and model that kind of way of being for her. So I have always said that I gained more out of this than she did.
There were life lessons for you too. Life
lessons for me all along. I was also very impressed with her from a very young age. She was at a very young age. She was very introverted and very, concerned about her English. But I would encourage her, go ask the clerk where we find X in the store. And she's like, I can't. No, you can do it. I'm just going to wait here. You just go ask them, and practicing her English and practicing her confidence, and when she was ready to go to school, she found out somehow herself how to get into a school like Latin where she had to test to get in. She was very driven and very determined. So I give her a ton of credit, and she has taught me a lot about being persistent, about finding a goal and chasing it, So I really do feel it's been as much a benefit to me as it has been to her.
How has this relationship helped you, particularly over the last year, in a time when connecting with people has been so hard? I mean, it's wonderful that we're emerging from the pandemic now, but, it's almost like something that we're a little too close to. And I think years from now, when we look back, sort of the difficulty, the challenge of that isolation, what it asked of us, will maybe be even more obvious. How did this relationship support you over the past 15 months?
Ooh. Jess, you want to take that one?
Well, I mean, we kept in touch, and I'm trying to think. I mean, I definitely felt isolating at times because, we're just locked in house. The very beginning of it, I was actually scheduled to go to China on a work trip.
That's right.
Right before, and then we're like, are we still going? And I still have relatives back in Hong Kong, China. They're like, you're not coming. Or they're like, you won't be able to come. It's not choice. And then when it hit, it was just like, okay. And then just like talking over the phone or navigating Zoom, where my 8-year-old is like the expert trying to tell like how do you do this, do that, So just try to laugh at it and still trying to stay connected. We were able to celebrate. I usually go over to Jackie's house for Thanksgiving, and we were still able to go. Celebrate in small groups, get tested. Do all the right things, but it was definitely hard.
Yeah.
But it's always nice to hear, just even to get a text or to hear a voice. Hey, how's it going? So just to check in, because it can be so isolating when you're surrounded by the same family members, same four walls.
Yeah.
Right. Just to remember that she's in your corner. She might not be right next to you, but she's still fulfilling that really important role in your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
How about for you, Jacqueline?
I would say probably the same. It's a clarifying thing to go through a trauma like this, right? It clarifies for each of us what's really important. And so how connected we are to other people, how important it is to be there for other people, ways to assist people who can't, help themselves in moments like this. And all of those things are sort of brought into full relief when we're in a situation like this. And, none of us have been through this before. This is an amazingly, incredibly difficult time for everyone. So trying to figure out how to navigate it and how to be there for each other. Sort of building on lessons that I think we learned over the course of this relationship, how to be a good friend to someone, and how to check in with them, and how to be there for them. And also how to reach out when you need some help. I think it's important for women because we are often the ones that other people come to for help. And it's, I think, hard for a lot of women, especially accomplished women and strong women, to say, like, I'm not doing so great right now. Like, I need some help. That's a hard thing for many of us to say and to do. So I think that's been important too, to help each other look at, so how are we dealing with this? How are we doing? Yeah.
And having someone in your life who you can trust enough to do that.
Yeah, we're
share
very
that vulnerability.
much, I think, touchstones in each other's lives. Like, I feel like that's never going to go away. That's always going to be a relationship that I can go back to no matter what else happens in my life. There's someone there in my corner.
Well, I'm just so grateful to have the chance to be talking about your friendship, to share the story of your connection, and hopefully inspire future big and little sisters out there to get involved in the program, because you are living proof of the value in one another's lives, and the things you can do with this kind of a relationship. So Jacqueline and Wai Lam, thank you so much. And for those of you out there who would like to give a nice gift to one of your fellow sisters. Can you say fellow sisters? Yes, you can. Yes, like Jacqueline and Wai Lam, right? You can support Big Sister with the purchase of these very cool shirts. You simply click on the Big Sister page on this platform, and you can purchase a t-shirt in honor of Big Sister Boston's 70th anniversary, and the proceeds will go to the enrichment and mentoring programs. It's a great investment in our community and in Greater Boston's girls and women. Thanks so much.